Hey, welcome back to the Closure House. I'm your host, Jessica, and today I'm here with Yazzy, and we're talking about how she went no contact and pretty much how she survived life. She is a social media content creator who talks a lot about her story and uses it to empower other women and other people who have experienced something that is similar. So, Yazzy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about who you went no contact with?
Yeah, so I went no contact with my entire family, but what's prompted everything was me going no contact with my mom.
Mm,
That was the biggest open eye opener to just kind of understanding my generational trauma and understanding how I didn't want my family members in my life anymore.
yeah. Can you tell me about when did you realize, I no longer wanna be a part of this family?
I think for me, I'll say a part of the family, it officially happened about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
I've always known that I wouldn't be talking to them. There's a few different instances because we've been contacted, no contact at different times in my life. But the most recent one, that was the big one, was when my aunt physically assaulted me. And my grandmother saw the assault happen from the beginning of the conflict, from the middle, and like all the way to the end. And I'm just explaining to my aunt, like, I need you to respect me. You're asking me and deliberately disrespecting me, but I don't do the same thing to you. And my aunt gets upset and she pauses
Mhm.
as she's like arguing with me. And I take a step back and I'm like, hey, do not put your hands on me. Like, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm your niece, you know? We used to bake cakes together. Like, we used to go to the movies together. She was my favorite aunt. And then she proceeds to start hitting me in the face. And as my grandmother is watching this from start to finish, she starts yelling at me and she says, you need to leave. She's like, you need to leave my house. And I'm thinking she's talking to my aunt.
Right.
She's talking to me. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at her. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what are you saying to me right now? I am furious, but I'm so angry that I'm yelling, but I'm not cursing or anything. I just look my grandmother, I look her square in her eyes and I tell her, I'm never speaking to any of you ever again. I was like, I'm done here. Like, there's nothing more that can be done. There's nothing more that can be said. There's not a pastor, not a therapist, not a clinician that could possibly get us through the years almost now, because I'm 29, 2 decades of trauma that you guys have put me through. So that was pretty much the last time that was the time that I knew that I would never speak to my family at all ever again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So tell me about take me back to, before that, because you went no contact with your mom, you were saying, and then later with your family, but, what happened? Tell me early on.
Yeah. So when I was 16 is when I figured out that my mom was a narcissist. Um, I was in the bedroom with my best friend. We're on the phone like teenagers do.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there. My mom comes in the room and she goes, you left a pad wrapper on the counter, not a pad, just a pad wrapper,
Mhm.
the pad that it's like wrapped in. And she's like, you need to go clean up now. I immediately tell my best friend that I need to call her back because my mom's eyes, when she gets that upset, they're like filled with rage. So I already knew that this was going left. So I sit there and I tell her, and I'm like, okay, mom, I'm going to go clean the bathroom. And she's like, well, you need to hurry up. Like, go do it now. So I'm going to clean the bathroom. And my mom I can feel her watching me clean the bathroom. And the bathroom was already cleaned. It had been cleaned for days. It was just a pad wrapper on the counter.
Mhm.
And she makes me clean this bathroom 3 different times over and over again as she's berating me, yelling at me, telling me I'm disgusting, that I'm never gonna have anybody in my life because I'm gross and nobody's ever gonna wanna be around me. So that is like what is happening as I'm re-cleaning the bathroom. She tells me to clean it again for like a 4th or a 5th time.
Mhm.
And I tell her no. I was like, I'm not cleaning the bathroom anymore. I was like, so if you don't like it, like you can go do it. Me and her, we start arguing and I just start crying. Like I was already crying because I'm cleaning the bathroom with like bleach and chemicals and it's getting to my head. I'm like, I have a headache. I'm getting lightheaded.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't care. Keep cleaning it. So we're arguing. And I was like, I'm done arguing with you. I go downstairs and I'm in the living room and I start typing on my phone, why doesn't my mom love me? Immediately, this big page for daughters of narcissistic mothers comes up.
Mhm.
And my mom hits every single point on like a narcissistic mom. And I had always said when I was younger that I hated her and I wasn't gonna speak to her because of the way that she's always treated me, but that was like the nail in the coffin
Yeah.
of when I knew I was never speaking to my mom again, 'cause everything made sense, and I was like, "Oh, she's a personality disorder, like, there is nothing that I could do
Yeah.
that could make her love me, that could make her do anything differently, like, this is just is what it is." And that was the moment that I knew. It took me a while to get to where I am today, because 'cause we've been no contact, low contact, on and off, but this one is firm. This one's not going anywhere. I have no desire to speak to her. She honestly makes my life worse when she's in my life. She does not make it any better. Um, Everything about myself is just worse when my mom is around.
It's really hard, especially you describing, like, the hovering when they're always
Mhm.
standing over you, and it feels like you can't ever do anything right, and even when you're doing it the best of your ability, it's never good enough. It's like that really chips away at self-esteem.
Yes, it does. I still struggle with it to this day. I'm currently in trauma therapy, and it, it's a struggle to really get myself to a point where I'm not tolerating disrespect from other people.
Yeah.
It's a struggle because I do feel like I attract a lot of narcissistic people or people with high narcissistic qualities. And it's really hard for me to set boundaries sometimes. I know that it's imperative for my survival in general, but it is a struggle. It's not something that I sometimes always do automatically.
Yeah.
And even when I set boundaries, there are times where I do feel guilty for setting boundaries.
Because what was it like when you were growing up? Like, were you able to set some boundaries with your mom?
No. Every time I did set a boundary with her, it was met with physical violence. And and if not physical violence, it was a combination of physical and definitely verbal. My mom was really big on verbal abuse.
Mhm.
And I never got to set boundaries, to the point where my body was being used for her benefit when it came to men and things of that nature. So I've physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, none of those things existed.
Yeah. That makes it really hard for you to know, 1, how to set boundaries for yourself, and 2, how to be around people, because when you meet people and they treat you the way your family has treated you, I don't think we talk enough about how that feels like home, even if it feels horrible, and so it's so hard
Yes.
to pick the right person, right?
Yes, yes, I agree with that. I was also in a covert, abusive, narcissistic relationship about this is 2026. So me and him ended about 9 months ago. And I thought he was the love of my life. I thought that he was going to be the father of my children and he was going to be my husband, all to find out in the end when I like decided to kind of look up and the smoke cleared and the colored glasses fell off. I noticed that I was dealing with a con artist and a covert narcissist. And it was so crazy to me because one time him and I were arguing in the apartment and he like he's like saying something and I feel like I can't get a word in edgewise and it kind of clicked to me. I'm like, oh, I'm dating a version of my mom.
Mhm.
Like this feels like this all over again. But I used to say that. I used to tell him like, you feel like home to me. I feel comfortable with you. You make me. But the home was chaotic
Yeah.
and it was abusive and he was all of those things. It was a slow burn to me understanding that I was being abused by him because it wasn't like your typical narcissistic relationship. He was very kind. He was very sweet. He was paying for everything. He did a lot of things for me. He showed me off. He made me feel special, which is what I needed at that time because that was right at the time that I had gotten kicked out of my grandmother's house. I was homeless. I started this job
Mhm.
and I met him at this job. So I always tell people when I talk about this, it was wrong, or I just say right amount of attention at the wrong time
Yeah.
what it was for me. And I was attracted to him physically and things of that nature. And there was a point in time in the relationship, especially in the beginning, where I really felt that he was better than me. And I felt that I should be lucky to have him and I should be honored to that he's claiming me and things of that nature.
Mhm.
So once like those things try to dissipate in my mind, I then started to kind of see him for who he actually was. And it just all clicked to me, I think, like in that argument. And then one day he used to always say that we weren't trauma bonded and that we had a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And then one day we're laying in the bed and I said something about trauma bonds. I don't remember specifically what I said, but I remember what he said. And he
Mhm.
goes, well, we've been trauma bonded from the beginning.
And you're like, "Wait a minute. I thought this
Yeah.
was healthy. I thought you thought this was healthy."
Yeah. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, and that was the moment that it clicked. I'm like, oh, I got conned. Like, you've played me. I you want, like, I can't even, I was like, I can't even say anything. I can't even act like I'm top dog here. Like, you've got it. Like, you did it. Um, he, in the end, everything was just horrible. My breaking point with him was we had a huge argument in the house, and he would always, anytime I wanted to leave, and this I should have known here there that we were getting into the realm of like abuse.
Mhm,
Anytime I wanted to leave, he'd take my phone, he'd take my keys, he would barricade the door with himself because, in comparison to him, I am smaller.
mhm,
And one day we're arguing over something racial that he said because he was white and I'm black. And he like picks me up and he throws me on this couch. And on the couch that he threw me on, it's like on the edge, it has wood. So like I thought my ribs were fractured.
mhm.
And I kind of just go into this trance, and it's like a movie. Like I can hear him yelling at me in the background and I can see kind of everything in front of me, but I just kind of like freeze. And I told myself, I'm like, oh, he's going to kill you. Like you have to leave. You have to get out of this. And I remember, like, I told him afterwards, and I'm not gonna lie, I reacted violently back to him because I felt like I was being violated. And so I told him, I said, I don't like this. I don't like this relationship. I don't like where this is going. I didn't leave in that moment. I got an apartment the next day, but I never fully left him emotionally until months later.
Yeah,
Um, I think that's just important for people to know because when you grew up with a narcissistic parent, it's not always easy to identify covert abuse if
yeah.
your mother was overt.
Mhm.
So it didn't seem like that. I thought that like him needing my location, him checking up on me consistently throughout the day, him keeping tabs on me because we worked at the same job. I thought that was all control. And so, I mean, I thought that all was care, but it was control.
Yeah, even thinking about him, like, taking your keys and other things, when you haven't been cared
Oh,
for, sometimes that comes across as, like, somebody who won't give up on you or somebody who's like,
yeah.
"Please don't leave angry." It does look like care a lot of times, and it's not.
Yeah. And he used to say that. He used to tell me like, "I don't want you driving angry. I love you. Like you just need to lay down. We need to go to sleep after we talk about it." And I would believe him. But the most important thing that I learned from that relationship is that I wanted to feel special.
Yeah.
I wanted to be somebody's favorite. I wanted to be needed. And when he gave me that attention and everything that he found out I was looking for, there was nothing that anyone could say to me
Yeah.
that could make me leave him because I needed that affection, that attention so much. And it was familiar to me. So I did not see the signs. Even when there were people kind of telling me things like, hey, he's this way, he's that way. I'm like, well, he's not that way to me behind closed
Mhm.
doors. And I do want to say, like, if someone is telling you something about a person, an individual, especially if it is a man, because I had men telling me about him more than anything,
Mhm.
you need to just believe them and then just kind of take a step back and ask yourself, like, what is attracting me to this person? What is keeping me here, even with all the information that I have attained?
Yeah, but how do you know how to separate what you're experiencing from what you feel, from what someone else is saying? Like, when did it register?
For me, it registered. There was a day that because I worked at a nonprofit, and so we serve dinner to the clients there. And one day a man walks in and he's like, is that who you're gonna marry? Is that the man that you claim and things of this nature? And I'm looking at him. We're all coworkers. We're like one big family. And I'm looking at him like, dude, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm telling you that this man, he's like, I'll just say Bob for the sake of the
Yeah.
thing. Bob's horrible. Like he's a horrible human being. He betrays people. He plays one part and he does another, and he'll step on anybody's toes to get to where he was. And all these things are true still to this day about this person. And I just looked at him. I couldn't defend him
Mhm.
because what he was saying about him had already been done to me. I had just brushed it under the rug
Yeah.
because he would consistently undermine my work, try to kind of get me in trouble or take credit for something that I was doing, things of that nature. And he would always throw me under the bus if need be in order to please the women that we worked for.
Mhm.
And so he's saying that to me. And then when me and that guy kind of go outside and have a really long conversation, and he's just kind of explaining to me how Bob has broken his heart. This is a grown man with a child telling me how my boyfriend at the time has broken his heart because he thought of him as a son. He thought of him as a plethora of things, all for him to betray him in the end.
Wow.
I think that was like when it really clicked for me that it didn't matter. I wasn't getting my needs met anymore. And nothing, and it kind of started to slowly occur to me that everything that he was doing for me before had dissipated. He wasn't paying for things anymore. I went back to financially struggling. I felt alone. And so I walked up to the apartment and waited for him to get home. And I was telling him like everything that happened that day
Mhm.
and how you're being perceived and how you're making us look as a unit. And he just kind of stares at me, and I can just tell he doesn't care. And he's like, "Well, I can try to be a better man for you. Like, I thought I was doing better." He's like, I was like, "Well, I'm not." I was like, "You're not. I feel alone with you." And I
Mhm.
was like, "I honestly, this reminds me of how I used to feel growing up." I was like, I would be sitting in a house with my family when they were there, and I always felt isolated and felt like no one understood me and they didn't care about me. I was like, "And I feel the same way about you." And he's getting upset, he's getting angry, he's like, "I don't know what more you want from me, I do everything for you, I do this," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, when you do those things for me, your abuse towards me increases, and if this is, like, what comes with being taken care of, I don't want it."
Yeah. They condition you right out of being, like, the one to take care of them, and then later, you're doing everything, you're exhausted, you don't feel loved, and then, it's really hard because people are like, "Well, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you see the sign?" And it's like, they don't understand how abuse molds you into a person who narcissists are attracted to.
Yes. Yeah. Like, he was, and he was very charismatic, and I will be completely honest, up until about maybe 4 months ago, I think it fully got shattered for me because even though we were like in the last throes of our relationship, the biggest thing that I think also completely like, yes, I left, but like really allowed me to release him
Mhm,
was I was experiencing homelessness, and he had given me a car prior to me experiencing homelessness. But he calls me while he knows I'm homeless and in and out of Airbnbs, living out of my car from time to time, the car that he's given me. He has 2 cars in his possession
mhm,
that are perfectly beautiful working cars, and the car that he gave me a while back is honestly a piece of shit on wheels, but, he calls me and he's like, "Hey, like, I need my car back." And I look at him and I go, "Bob, you do know that you're, like, calling me as I'm, like, in my Airbnb that I may can't afford for the rest of the week, so I'll have to sleep in the car that you gave me. You like do understand that."
mhm.
He's like, "Yeah, but I got somebody who's looking to buy it, so I am gonna need it back eventually." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Just pull the rug right
Um,
out from under you.
yeah, and I just and I kind of like took a pause and I like stared at the mat on the bathroom floor, and I was like, "So at what point did you start hating me? Like when did that happen?" I was like, "So," I was like, "Cuz I'm confused." So between like the I love yous, the every morning we spend together, we work the same scheduled shift at our job, me cooking dinner for you, me bathing you when you're depressed, me being there for you, me being your emotional blanket, me talking you through your issues with your mom and your family. At what point did you start to hate me? Because I would like to know so that like I cannot do this again.
Mhm.
And he just kind of like doesn't really say anything. And he just kind of also tells me in that same conversation, "Well, I'm also like seeing somebody else. I want you to know that." And he's just like consistently at this point stomping me while I'm down. I think kicking, we're past that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I ask him like, "Who is she? Because you only date people that you work with. So do I met her?" And he's like, "I don't think that's a good question for you to ask. It doesn't really matter." And then I was like, "Okay." And because I wasn't giving him what he wanted more out of that conversation, he just kind of keeps going on with the like manipulation and the badgering and things like that. So I think like that was a moment where I knew that I had to like release him and I had to let him go. And that was a grieving process within itself because I think still in my mind somewhere I thought that we were going to end up together and we were just going through a rough patch. Mind you, I'm homeless and he's not helping me, so I don't know why I thought
Well,
that.
I
But
think just because you can't turn it off. I mean, if we could turn it off, the second it felt bad, it'd be over. But you're like, when you go into a situation and you have such good self awareness and you're like, my family is this way. So you're like, I will not experience this again because I escaped them. But it's
yeah,
like that slow cooking frog. You put a frog in hot water, it's going to jump out,
yes.
boiling water, right? And then, but if you put them in the pot and you turn the pot on, they will die
Hmm.
in there. And that is
Yes.
how that abuse that you're talking about, the covert narcissism, that's how that happens to people. No matter it happens to
Okay.
us as therapists too. Like, I don't want you to think like half of the reason I'm doing this is because I previously was in a narcissistic relationship, and
Okay.
it was horrible. And when you're a therapist, you're always beating yourself up like, how did I not see the signs? But what paved the way was the abuse from my family and my narcissistic parents.
Mhm.
So
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry that you had to experience that because
I love doing this, but I feel bad every time I talk to someone that they have experienced it too, and that's how we're meeting. It's me. I'm glad I
yes.
get to meet you today, but at the same
Yes.
time, as I was watching your content, I didn't even get far before I like messaged you because I'm like talking to people who I've already processed some of it, but it still
Yes.
hurts.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. I can it's I tell people, like, sometimes it doesn't matter the information that I've attained, the things that I've accomplished even thus far. There's still not a day that doesn't go by that I don't wish that my childhood was different.
Mhm,
I don't want my mom for who she is today. I don't want that person. There was a time where I do remember my mom being very loving and very caring and very kind, and, I was very young, like, it was a very young age.
mhm,
My mom used to give me a big thing was, like, she used to give me Eskimo kisses before bed,
mhm,
and, that version of my mother, I would like to attain again one day, but that'll never happen. So there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't think about those things.
mhm,
I don't think about how different my life would have been, the traumas that were self-inflicted wounds I wouldn't have done to myself if I had a proper foundation growing up. So when people ask me, I guess when we're getting into forgiveness, I think that's why I have a very different view on forgiveness, and I don't truly believe in it, especially when people have done things that I just honestly feel are unforgivable.
mhm.
My mom has done things that they still affect my everyday life.
Yeah.
They haven't gone anywhere. I don't I feel like one day they will dissipate, but it will always be something that is in my mind. I think the reason why I started my content is because I watched a documentary of Tina Turner before she passed.
Mhm,
And Tina said something that really resonated with me, and that the interviewer was asking her like, "Oh, well, you live with your husband now, and he loves you, and do you feel like your good days outweighed your bad?" And Tina's answer was no. I don't want that to be my life. I don't want that to be my answer. So my sole purpose for starting this content was not only for healing myself, especially heal my throat chakra. That was a big thing because
yeah.
I've been silenced my whole life. But to also let other people know that you can do that too.
Mhm,
You too can talk about your mother on the internet. And the thing is, like you said, it's a taboo topic, but it shouldn't be taboo because unfortunately, this is a lot of people's stories.
yeah.
And I wanted to not only give myself a voice, but give other people a voice and let them know that you don't need to keep accepting this for the rest of your life. Just because that was your foundation, that doesn't have to be the trajectory of the rest of your life.
Mhm,
And that's what I try to tell myself every day, even on my rough days, because, um, yeah, there's just not a day that goes by that I don't think about the severe amount of trauma that was placed on me. Like I said, some days are better than others, and
mhm,
it's not as intense when I was not in therapy, so I can cope better. But that's why I'm not the biggest proponent of forgiveness,
mhm.
um, and that's just my opinion on it.
That makes sense, especially people pressing you to get forgiveness without any kind of, like, apology,
Mhm.
recognition, acknowledgement, just change
Yes.
behavior at the least, like, there's nothing
No.
offered, it's just like, give forgiveness because of who people are, that's your family, and you owe that
Yes.
to them.
Yes, that's exactly how it sounds. And my family specifically are naturally volatile, violent people. And so they're not even allowing me to heal in peace. I initially was taking a hiatus 2 days ago. And then recently my aunt gets on there and she's telling people that I'm abusing narratives for views, and that's not true. My stories are consistent. They are relatable. There are times where I have to re-record content multiple times because I'm having a flashback as I'm recording and I go, maybe I can't post this, or I'll sit with my feelings, or I'm like, well, maybe and I have to identify my feelings. Am I feeling angry about it? Am I sad about it? Do I have resentment about what was happening? I wish that I was telling lies. I wish this was some story that I made up and this was not my life. But unfortunately, this is was my childhood and this is my current life.
Mhm. I'm an advocate of people using whatever happens to you. Anything that's bad, using it
Uh,
to get through anger, like, disenfranchised grief is like grieving people who are still alive or relationships that you wanted a different outcome and all of that
yeah,
is so complicated because that's my
it
specialization is actually grief. And it's so
oh,
complicated that when I hear people say online, "Oh, you go no contact because you want views or you're trending," it's like, do they even understand the grief associated of every day of your life that you have to think about either what you went through or what you're experiencing now and how it's changing? It's like so much more than people think.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And grief has been a lot for me because I've had to grieve not only my mom, who's still on this earth. I've had to grieve her. I've had to grieve honestly some things of my own life that changed. I thought at one point that I wanted to be a mom and things like that, and I had to raise my brother for 8 years against my consent,
Mhm,
and that also altered the trajectory of my life. I don't want children now. I love kids. I think they're beautiful and things of that nature, but I don't want to have children.
mhm.
And I feel like sometimes yes, there are certain things that I feel like we are not able to have in life due to our trauma. And I do feel like that's one of mine. And I've made peace with that decision because I
Mhm.
do find children to be very expensive. But but
Yes.
I, I but I and like I joke about it a lot about not having kids, but that is something that I feel like my childhood did rob of me. I don't feel like that's in the cards for me. I do feel like I can be a mother
Yeah.
to people, and maybe one day I'll adopt or something of that nature. But and I do take care of people on a daily basis because I am a social worker.
Mhm.
But and that does fill my cup. I will be honest. That makes me feel like I'm not their mom, but it makes me have that
Yeah.
those maternal instincts, and I do get quite a bit of enjoyment from that. But when we're talking about, like, people's like, "Oh, well, you can just heal from," but sometimes, like, you've healed from all you can heal from, and then some things are still just not they're not able to be done.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I totally agree, and I think forgiveness is for people to determine what it looks like. I think there's too many definitions that are rigid, that are like, "You have to do this to forgive," but maybe, like, using your content is how you forgive yourself, even if you can't ever forgive them.
Yeah, I feel like maybe that's true. I feel like through doing my content, it's helps me really truly understand, like, who I am. It's helped me learn why people love me and why people don't like me.
Mhm.
I'm a truth teller, and people don't like to hear that.
Mm-mm.
And I feel like the reason why people didn't used to like me was because I used to lie all the time. So I was very likable. I lied all the time. I was a huge people pleaser. So of course you like me. I'm altering my personality to fit into yours so that you can find me appealing, so that you can love me, so that you
Mhm.
can appreciate me. All for it to not be working out in the end. It was always to my detriment and other people's
Yeah.
betterment. And the moment that I decided to start setting boundaries, to start telling the truth, to start just kind of being unapologetic about who I am, yeah, people don't like me. And that's fine. Like, I'm okay with that. And it is a slow process because it's something new for me.
Mhm.
But I'm just understanding that a lot of it does come from jealousy. A lot of it does come from people, they don't like when a mirror is turned back onto them,
Mhm.
and I've just accepted that because I didn't like when mirrors were being turned on to me.
Yeah.
So, like, I do understand. I've had to work through these things, go through an ego death, and understand that these are the issues that I have, and I need to learn how to fix them.
Mhm. Yeah, truth tellers are truth tellers in every space. So they get disliked at work. Like, it's very difficult to make genuine relationships because people thrive off of passive aggressive, pretending everything's okay, not talking about feelings. And truth tellers are like, this is what I see. And it's like, out of caring, I'm telling you what I see because I want it to change. And other people will tell you it'll be gaslighting. You're not experiencing that. I'm not doing that. And you're the problem, even though you didn't create a problem.
E exactly. That is very, very true, and I think the big thing is I don't mind if people choose to live a life and they don't wanna heal. My problem is that they find a problem with me choosing to
Yeah.
live an opposite life. And I think that's like what you said, that you like even at work or things like that. Like there'll be things happening. I work with adults who have disabilities, and I view them as just any other human,
Mhm.
and they are the best population of people I've ever got to encounter in my life.
Mhm.
They have I have my where I have my bad days at work, they truly bring me a different type of light that I've never seen before. I think the things that draws me into them, and maybe they've helped me more than I can understand, they are truth tellers. They don't
Yep.
have those neurotypical things in their brains to lie all the time. And especially when it's about their emotions, those are the ones that they're the most raw and honest about. And I feel like that's from working in this industry that's helped me. I'm like, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. You know,
Yes.
like if they do it unapologetically, they do it. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's crass, sometimes it's beautiful, but they do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's given me that confidence to be the same way. I'm very sensitive. It didn't sometimes it. I'll say a little bit more now that I'm on social media and I've dealt with my family. I'm probably got thicker skin
Yeah.
than I've had back past, but because people online can say egregious things to you.
Yes.
Um, but I feel like I am sensitive, and I'm learning to own those things. I'm learning to own my sensitivity, and I told myself the big thing that I'm not allowing
Mhm.
anyone to do, like for the rest of my life, is I'm not going to allow people to steal my light. I fear that people think that from me doing this content that it doesn't come with like the negative side of things, which is why I'm currently on a hiatus. And people want to siphon your energy a lot when they see that you have a lot of it, especially if it's bright.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to learn how to conserve that and hone it for myself and not always use it in such a negative space.
Yeah, I think the light is what draws the narcissist too. And
Yeah.
and because they think if they get next to the light, they'll be able to get some of it themselves because 'cause they're hollow. There's literally
Mhm.
nothing inside of them. That's why there's no
Nothing else.
empathy. There's nothing, there's no personality. They mirror everything other people do. There's nothing about them, right? So they get close to you and they get to feel the warmth, the light, and they think that they can light themselves based on what work you do. Once they find out
Yes.
they can't, they will put that light out.
That is exactly true, and I feel like that's currently what's happening with my family. That's what happened with my ex, and yeah, I do. I feel like he dimmed my light a lot,
Yeah.
and when I started to gain it back, and especially I started gaining traction on social media while I was with him. And I feel like that's when his green monster reared its ugly head the
Mhm.
most. He like walks into one of my clients' apartments at one time and he's just like, you need to take down what you put up there. And it wasn't anything actually relating to the content that I post now. It was something just very funny about how like I'm poor in America and I want to do different things because like I don't get paid enough. And he was like, you need to take that down. What if one of the families of your clients sees that? Or what if like our vice president sees that? And I was like, I didn't know that this company paid me when I'm not on the clock. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You can't. I was like, and then it dawned on me that he was reminding me again of my mom. And I looked him in his eye and I said, you know, you and my mom and my family have always tried to silence me. I'm not going to shut up. I said, so if that's what you want and that's the kind of woman that you want in your life, I'm not the woman for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like also deconstructing the misogyny that was rampant, still is to this day in my family, is rampant in the world, but I have mainly women and people probably like, what? I'm like, they uphold such patriarchal values in my family systems. It's ridiculous.
Can you help me understand, like, what you mean? Because I know it's different for so many people. What did you experience?
Yeah. So my mom's big thing was always like, you need to be doing things to attain a man. That was always her big message, where she may have never came out and directly said that, even though I feel like sometimes maybe she kind of did. Her verbiage towards me was always, you can't do this because of a man. You can't act this way because you won't get a man. Men are going to view you this way. You don't want a man, blah, blah, blah. That it was always these types of narratives coming out of my mom's
Mhm.
mouth. And then when my grandfather was alive, a saying that he used to say a lot was like, men don't like women who are loud and men don't like women who are always have an opinion and can always say what they want to say and things like that, because it got to a point where I loved my grandfather very much. He was my favorite person and I used to talk to him a lot, but as I got older, and I don't know where it came from, I think it's just a true radical like feminist inside of me that she's always been there.
Yeah.
um He would say things and I would just be like, "Please be quiet." Like, that's so misogynistic at a young age, at like 12 or something of that nature. And I didn't like arguing with my grandfather, but I feel like that was the first time that I started noticing, and I didn't know that if like what the word was, so I probably didn't say misogynistic. I probably said stupid or something like
Mhm.
that. But I just started noticing that he would compare women and men a lot. And then it started to click to me as I got older. That's why my women in my family are always comparing themselves to other women. They're always talking about negatively about what other women are doing and how that translates over to like why men don't like them or how men are perceiving them, which is just giving the big message of that everything that you do in life should revolve around a man.
Yeah, and everything you're doing should be to get a man, too. And you're
Yes.
what are you if you don't have a man, though? Did they make that clear?
Here's the funny thing about my aunts. Most of them are not married. Um, and they would also, I'm gonna be honest, when I'm kind of thinking about it,
Mm.
my aunts who weren't married used to talk about men in like a very like, this may sound kind of crazy or contradictory, but very over sexualizing way.
Mhm,
And so I feel like that kind of taught me, like, even with my mom always like changing out men all the time, I think that taught me that like men are useless and they are only there for sex. And when you are married, you're going to be miserable.
mhm.
If that was my
Yeah, but
reality.
they're like,
Uh,
"But join us." That is the part about
yes,
dysfunctional families that other people don't understand. They will be
yes,
single. They will force
yes,
you into a relationship. If you pick a
yes,
good guy, they'll hate him. If you pick a bad
yes,
guy, they'll love him. That bad guy
yes,
will carry out the abuse, and they can't touch you
absolutely.
anymore, but that guy can. That's the dynamic that, like, I don't think people really understand about
No,
family
you don't.
narcissistic family dynamics.
I agree with you because I do feel like that's their big problem right now is they want me to be miserable with them.
Yeah.
And I just refuse to live that life. I didn't come this far to be unhappy. I think Kim Kardashian said that, but
Okay.
yeah, but like I really didn't. I didn't come this far and I haven't done all this to be unhappy in my life. And I think that was also another conversation I had to have with myself when I was with my ex. I was like, you have overcome like you're a childhood sexual assault survivor. You've survived a narcissistic mom and then a narcissistic family dynamic because my mom isn't just a narcissist. My grandmother is a narcissist, and then
Mhm,
her children have highly narcissistic traits. They're also very violent and very selfish and very verbally abusive. So this was just like my whole life, and my uncle as well because she had one son, and I was like, you've survived all these things, homelessness. I have type 1 diabetes. I struggle with depression and anxiety and eating disorder. And I was like, you haven't done all of these things,
mhm,
lived in 3 different states, raised your brother to be unhappy. And so, like I said, that is the reasoning for like my content and how it started was because I just felt like I was being silenced in a lot of areas of my life, and I have been for a long time. And I just decided to start speaking and saying what I want to say and telling my story. And I honestly, I'm going to be honest, when I first started, I didn't ever think that it would even be where it is
mhm.
now. And I sometimes have a hard time seeing how big it can be, but I'm working towards that. And it does feel that heals me because like it's doing something, and I like joke and I'm like, I didn't go through all this trauma for nothing.
Yeah.
I'm like,
But I
like
like that you took a hiatus when needed too. I love that you're doing everything at your own pace. That lets me know for anybody who's trying to paint a narrative that you're doing this for views and clicks, it lets me know you're not because you'd be doing it like a machine just to get whatever you could get out of it. But some of your low days, you're like handling, healing, dealing with trauma on your own. So it's very
yeah,
evident that you just want to get it out there. This is what happened to me
mhm,
and
yeah,
help other people through it.
yeah, yeah, and I think yeah, and I just knew it was not going to be a popular topic, which is why I call myself the unpopular table pod. And it's just I don't talk about things, and then people sometimes don't like the way that I say things, so I there's that too. I have unpopular opinions and I have unpopular ways of saying them. A lot of my times it does come off harsh, but I'm going to be honest, when I'm coming off harsh, it is because I am passionate about something, and it is because I see how bad moms, narcissistic moms, emotionally immature parents, how they have negatively affected their child so immensely that they can't function.
Yeah.
Just because you sit next to somebody at work and they're doing the same job you're doing, you have no clue what their mind is like.
Mhm.
You have no clue that maybe all the laundry in their house has been piled up for months because they don't know how to function outside of work,
Yeah.
because all they've ever known is to be a worker, to be valuable to other people, to see how they're serving other people, to see if that determines if they should take care of themselves that day.
Mhm.
And if you're always meant to be a servant, you don't serve yourself. You're only serving other
Yeah, you're
people.
giving until you have nothing. Their whole thing is keeping you exhausted. So the more you have to give, the more shame they can give you, the more hoops you're jumping through, the more they get recharged because they use people like a supply, like you were saying, and they just drain the life out of people. So when people get away, they feel better.
Uh, yeah, I tell people I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist of any kind. I, I'm a girl on the internet talking hot shit about her mom,
Mhm.
is what I tell people. And my advice to you when you're asking me about the narcissistic mother that you're in contact with, my advice is always no contact. I don't care what the situation is. You cannot heal in a space where you are being hurt.
Mhm.
And I always second that with abuse and love can't coexist in the same space. If that woman loved you, if she cared about you, if she did what she was supposed to do, you would not feel the way that you're feeling right
Yeah.
now. And love is just a feeling. You either feel it or you don't. And you don't feel loved. So you need to leave.
Yeah, I get that. Unfortunately, we
Mm.
have ethical guidelines that keep us our ethical guidelines keep us from saying that, but we get the blame.
Yeah.
You ever hear that from the estranged parents? They're like, "My kid went to a therapist and now they don't talk to us." Like, we as therapists, we don't tell them to go now. I'm sure some do, but good therapists
Yes.
won't just because we don't know the
Yeah.
outcome. We don't know what they'll do because it's kind of like they're relentless. They don't let up. They'll tell you like you're the
Yeah.
problem, and then when you exit, they'll still find ways to contact you, talk about you, or whatever. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, you're completely right. I'm sorry that y'all have those guidelines a little bit because I could I praise therapists for what you guys have to do because me I'd be like no contact, just don't talk to them. I'm like all right, end the session. You good? Like
Solved it in a day, right? Meanwhile, we're like 5 years in.
yes,
Narcissistic abuse, the unwind of it takes so much time. You know, it's really
hmm,
sad. And we see it sometimes pretty early on. We can call it
yeah,
out, but we can't like say, you need to
yeah,
leave.
yeah. I get that. I get that, and it is hard because I always say that some people feel that people are in therapy are starting off where I am. I am an anomaly because I have always been hyper self aware
Yeah.
from a young age. That is not the reality for most people. That doesn't make me any better or anything like that. It is very hard to get a lot of people to talk about the baseline of their emotions because they've been silenced and they've been told you're fine. Like your emotions don't matter. Everybody else in the rooms matter and all everybody else's needs matters, but your needs don't matter. And that just makes you abandon yourself. You've been taught from a young age to just abandon everything about yourself, but especially your emotions. So when you're walking into therapy, I could definitely understand where you can't just immediately be like, "Hey, those people abuse you. You need to cut them off."
Mhm.
Like that's not possible. And I do try to. I feel like it's always when I am speaking to people and I can see that they're hurting, especially because of in my situation, their mom
Yeah.
specifically, I just start asking little questions. And then sometimes I can see it's obviously you're a therapist, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then they start kind of connecting dots. And so, depending on the person, I will tell them, I'm like, hey, your mom's a narcissist, or hey, your mom sounds like she has like a narcissistic personality disorder. I'm not a doctor, but you should probably talk to somebody
Mhm.
about that. And I do always recommend therapy to people because it's been helpful to me.
Yeah, I think that you're really one of the things that we're talking about that's gonna be so helpful is that people think when I leave, the abuse is over, I'm good. And it's like, no, the abuse happened for so long. Sometimes it takes really a lot of time to undo it. So
Yes.
I actually had a question for you about that. Like, is there anything that your mom said specifically that you have spent, like maybe you're struggling the most to undo?
The big thing that my mom said to me was the day I asked her, we were in Texas, we were at a train station, and I had asked her, I said, "Hey, when is the last time that you told me that you loved me?" And she kind of looks off in the distance and she goes, "Well, you should just never expect to hear that from me because I don't feel that way about you." And I think like that it's something that is like, I think it's stuck in there. Like it's never leaving.
Mhm.
And so I can never, I'm sorry, I can never question if my mom loves me or not because she told me that. So it's like if you're telling your child that you held in your stomach for 8 months because I was a preemie,
Mhm.
y- you, I don't know how much more blatant we could get. I don't know how much, like, because she didn't say that out of anger. My mom was very calm when she said that sentence to me.
Yeah.
She even paused a little bit and thought about it. And I just feel like that's something that still plagues my life because what I'm working on the most right now is not always trying to be chosen by somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I was chosen. I was chosen to be abused. I was chosen to be a just kind of like a I guess what I'm saying is like I was chosen to be abused. I was chosen to be disrespected. I was chosen to be the scapegoat. So now what I ask myself is, okay, if you're being chosen, what are you being chosen for?
Yeah. But that need to feel chosen, it's really hard to undo. It takes years to undo, and I that's what I mean. It's like so people see physical abuse and they're like, "Oh, you should leave this relationship with this guy because he was so abusive to you." But when it comes to families, they don't care what you went through with the family. They're like, "That is your family. You need to forgive them. You're so cold. You're so this. You're so that."
Yeah. Yeah. And I ask people sometimes when people are like really stuck on the abuse with their family, but if we're talking about moms, I just simply ask them, I'm like, well, if your mother was a random woman on the street,
Yeah.
like let's say I did that to you, would you be talking to me?
Mhm.
And their answer is always no. And I'm like, so the only thing that's holding you together is the false hope that your mother is different from anybody else on the street. And you're doing yourself a disservice by not seeing your parents as people. They're people. And there's great people in the world. There's people who meet gray areas. There's good people. There's bad people. There's bad people with good qualities. There are great people with who have also horrible qualities. That's the thing of people. We all kind of live in this gray space, and you keep thinking that your parents are different. They're not different. They're just people who happen to be the people that are the reason that you're here.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah.
So, like, having to undo her not loving you, literally saying, "I don't feel that way." It's like,
Mhm.
how did that play out in relationships? Like, have you ever heard that again?
Where I may not have heard it, I've definitely experienced it.
Mhm,
The actions are loud, whether I wanna hear them or not, they're really loud. I've never been romantically involved with anyone that has ever appreciated me, truly liked me, adored me, and cared for me. I've never experienced that, but I am grateful enough to have experienced what real love looks like, and it's come from my friends. I have 2 best friends. They are the most beautiful women I know externally and internally. They bring me a different level of peace that I can't quite explain even on a human level. They love me for who I am, and I'm no cakewalk. Please don't be confused. I'm with all this trauma. If there was nothing wrong with me, I might think that I was an angel.
mhm,
I I'm not a cakewalk, and being in relationships with me is difficult because I have a lot of trauma, and they show up for me every time, even when I don't ask. I don't think I've ever had to ask, if I'm being honest, when I think about it. And they do things for me even when they don't want to. They deal with me even when I can be difficult, and vice versa with me
mhm.
with them. And we've been in this shit for almost 2 decades now. I'm
Nice.
not going anywhere, neither are they. And that's the true love that I know. That's the and I've also been very fortunate to attain love from one of my best friend's parents. They have raised me as if I was their own. They've always treated me like I was their daughter. They've always cared for me more than I could ever ask for, even times where I know it was difficult for them because they're literally parenting a child that's not theirs with this severe amount of trauma that they didn't cause. And I'm forever grateful that I have a chosen family. And I understand that's not a lot of people's
Yeah.
realities. And so I don't take that for granted.
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, the most healing that I see is people finding like these pseudo parents, pseudo aunts, uncles, whatever, and they fill some of the void. So it makes grief a little easier. It's like, yeah, maybe I don't have my mom the way I would have liked to have a mom, but I have this
Yeah.
person in
Yeah.
my life and they give me motherly advice. And so I have
Yeah.
experienced love, right? That's what I hear you saying.
Yes. Yes. So I have, because people do ask me that a lot on my content, and the answer is yes. I do have a chosen family, and it, it's I've had them for a long time. Like, even when I was at home and I was a teenager and I was living with my family, I didn't spend holidays with them. I would spend it with my chosen family, because holidays at my house was like hell on
Yeah.
earth. So yeah.
Did anything stand out from holidays at times that you were just like, "I'm not doing this. I'm gonna go with my chosen family"?
My uncle was a drunk, so if anyone's ever seen Shameless, it was like having Frank Gallagher at the table.
Whoa.
Uh, and he's like, where he might have been a milder version, but when he's drunk, it's like full on Frank. Um, I at some point was just always being picked on. I was always the main topic of conversation,
Mhm,
or something big would happen, and it was never. And then I guess if someone asks me, also other big thing is I started to notice that as a family, we don't talk to each other; we talk at each other.
mhm,
Everything is always so aggressive and so violent, even if it's not physical.
mhm.
The way that we speak to one another and about one another is very unkind, and it's always loud. And I don't like those things. I find them to be chaotic. I find it to be dysfunctional, and I just want peace.
Mhm.
That's what I'm trying to achieve in my whole entirety of my life, is internal peace, so that like externally my life is peaceful as well.
Mhm.
And my family doesn't, they don't desire those things. It took me a while to notice that, but
Yeah.
I think I was about like in my preteen, like late preteen, early teen years, when I would just kind of start looking around the table, and I'm like, oh, we just yell at each other. Like, there's no love in this house. I was like, I don't even think we say I love you, which we don't.
Mhm.
It's not a thing for my family. But we sure can tear each other down, and we can talk about each other's faults. And like, when we are laughing and joking, it's about like things that have happened, but even under that coded language, it's abusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you were able to recognize those patterns. It's just they're constantly changing. So I always tell
Mm.
people to trust how they feel in situations more than anything. Like, you don't have to stay for the evidence of why you feel this way. Once you've been abused, you protect the inner child by just trusting the way you feel. And people will be like, I can't believe you left that guy. You only talked to him on one date. I can't believe you didn't give him another chance. And it's just like, no. People show up on dates as their best self. So if they show up crappy, then you already know, like, it's gonna.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because I've been on a few dates, and I tell people like I think the worst date I've had recently was I was on a date with this woman, and she's sitting there just telling me things like she lives with her ex and she goes on vacation with her ex and all these other things, and she's like, and I don't date to marry, and I'm sitting there like, why are we
What are we
sitting here? What is
doing?
going on? Like, what are we doing? And then she sends me a text afterwards that was very manipulative, and she's like, I've probably rang you off by now, but blah 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 blah. And my best friend was like, she's like, what do you think about that? I was like, red flag.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and like wrap this up. Cause I do this all the time, and I make excuses, and I'm like, well, maybe she was having an off day, and she wasn't having
Yeah.
an off day. It was just a horrible day, because she's just all over the place, and she's not a good person, and she's trying to see if she can test to see how much you're going to deal with.
Exactly. So I do a lot of capability theory when I'm working with narcissistic abuse survivors. And in
Mhm.
that, you're not even looking at the person. You're looking at what they're capable of. It's like, oh, when somebody
Yeah.
has a bad day, they're capable of sending manipulative texts. Do I want to deal with that?
Yeah.
No.
No.
And then you're
No.
out. And people will always be like, "Oh my goodness, that was fast." But every time I
Mhm.
haven't done that, like in my own life or other people's stories, like it seems like that's how those covert narcissists come in, and they look so different than the narcissist you've identified that it's easier
Yes.
for them to gain trust and stuff like that. The thing that sticks out to me about your story is that people think if you're self-aware, you won't go through things because you'll always see it coming. But I want you to know people are master manipulators and they'll learn to get in because they'll learn you first. And then,
That's exactly what happened with my ex. I gave him way too much information. And it was because I was so vulnerable. I was so hurt and abandoned by my family. I just could not believe, like, my grandmother, I have taken care of her so many times, but especially at that time of my life. I was working as a manager at a houseware store, and I had to take myself in Uber back and forth to work while she had a car that she wouldn't let me drive, even though I would drive her wherever she needed to go.
Right.
And then I was taking care of her, cooking, cleaning, helping her with bathing and doing her hair and things like that. And for her to leave me homeless like that after I had been assaulted in her face, I was
I
heartbroken.
don't think I
And
understand what happened. Like, I get that the fight happened, but then she said you have
yeah,
to leave, but, like, was that it, or was she saying you had to leave that moment?
well, yes, she did want me to leave in that moment. So at that point I had like a rental car, leasing a car. And so I did leave, and I came back because I was enraged. I could not function. I was just screaming. I just kept screaming and crying in the car. That's all I could do.
Mhm.
I couldn't do anything else. It was like a toddler having like a temper tantrum. And I was honestly, I felt like I was having like an out of body
Yeah.
experience. I didn't understand what was happening. And so after that, I come back to the house maybe like 2 days later because I stayed with a friend of mine, and we and her don't speak. We're not really talking. I'm definitely not talking to my aunt.
Mhm.
And she calls me downstairs because I'm at work. I used to work from home, and she calls me. I'm coming. I'm sorry, she didn't call me downstairs. I come downstairs on my break,
Mhm.
and she calls me over to her because I'm in the kitchen. She's in the living room, and she looks at me and she goes, "You know, I did a lot of praying to Jehovah because my grandma's a Jehovah
Mhm.
Witness, and she's like, he told me that you need to leave, and it would be a good thing for you to find somewhere else to stay." And she's like, you have a lot of problems that we can't help you with. And so I just looked at her and I was like, okay. I was like, it's your house. I don't pay rent here, so it's fine. Like, I'll leave. She starts becoming irate. She's like yelling. She's like, and you keep saying that we're mean to you and everything we've done for you. I was like, I don't know why you're yelling at me. I'm not arguing with you. I'm not getting loud with you. And I was like, but here you are, just like your daughter, disrespecting me when no one's
Mhm.
disrespecting you.
Yeah.
And she was like, when she sent you that text to be quiet, she sent it nicely. I was like, she can lie to you and y'all can tell each other whatever narratives you want. Nothing about her has ever been nice to me. I was like, that's just simply not true. I was like, but y'all are not nice to each other. So like, I am a fool to think that she would ever be kind to me. And she's just so yelling. And I was like, listen, I'm not going to argue with you, grandma. Like, I'll be out of your house. You told me that you're giving me to the end of February, in the middle of February. February's only got 28 days. I was born on the 28th day, so I know.
Yeah.
like, and I was just, and so I'm like, that's fine. And so, like, I just slowly for like the next week start packing my things. I go live with my other aunt. That didn't work out because I worked too far from her eventually. And
Mhm.
that's how I ended up with my ex because I started living where I was working.
Mhm.
Um, but that is like how that all transpired, and all of these things have led to me where I am today.
Mhm. No, I
Mhm.
hear you on that. That was really tough, and you didn't deserve any of the energy that they met you with or the things that you had to endure as a child. But I wanted to know, do you think that people will heal fully, even if they can't let go of some of the things that they've learned? Will they heal fully?
I feel like that's possible. I feel like if you, because big thing about therapy that I think I also would like to say, if you're not honest with yourself and you can't be honest with your therapist, I will say until you reach that point, it might be a little bit kind of counterproductive.
Mhm.
So, in order to heal, you have to do a lot of things. And I think the big thing that I learned is ego death is number one.
Yep.
You've got to kill that ego, and it's big and it's nasty, it's ugly, and it's really really tough. But
Yeah.
you have to kill your ego. Number two is learning what forgiveness looks like for you.
Mhm.
We discussed that earlier. Uh, I feel like number three is just learning that kind of what you just said. You didn't deserve anything that you went through, and it doesn't make you any less valuable because you were a scapegoat.
Mhm.
Um, I, I don't like to say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger because some things that don't kill people initially is kind of their demise.
Yeah.
Um, I do think healing is possible if you're honest, if you kill off the ego, if you seek out a therapy that is correct for you,
Yeah.
because talk therapy is not for everyone.
No.
Um, you need to figure out what is therapy to you. I feel like that's a big thing.
Mhm.
And then just, I think another big thing that's helped me with healing, And where I do know it's possible is I study narcissism.
Yeah.
I read up on it. I retain a lot of information about narcissists and narcissistic personality disorder and how that looks and things of that nature. So I do think healing is possible. You just have to. It's really hard.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
They make it sound like it's like skipping through a field of flowers, like, "Oh, I'm healing. I'm in my healing era," right? That was like a thing.
Yeah,
And I always tell
that's the thing.
people
Yes,
it's like being drugged behind a truck. Like,
it is.
you're hitting every bump along the way. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that to add to what you said, I think finding out who you are now is so important because it's hard to forgive who you were, who you had to be to survive the abuse.
Yeah,
So, like,
yeah.
finding out the identity and then killing off the voices. Like, they condition you to believe things about yourself, so you will automatically have judgments or thoughts that sound like your voice, but it's not you.
It's not you at all. And you are correct. Like you do have to silence those things. I There are days where I still hear my mom. I can still hear her in there. And the big one that I hear the most from her, she used to love the word disgusting. That was a big word for
Oh.
her. And my friend told me, she's like, you need to stop saying that word. She's like, you say that about yourself all the time. She's like, and you got that from your mom because she's like, I remember being at your house and your mom would say that all the time.
Mhm,
So you have to really learn how to deconstruct your mind. I also tell people like something that's very important because I find that a lot of us traumatized people love music.
mhm,
Um, Please understand that your ear gate is a thing.
uh-huh,
You need to be very careful about what you're allowing your brain to listen to
mhm,
consistently. I don't play people like, and she's popular right now, but like Mariah the Scientist. I used to love her music.
mhm,
I also listened to her heavily when I was in an abusive relationship.
mhm.
I don't listen to her as much anymore. You need to find different things for your brain. Even though she's a rapper, Ken the Man is consistently in my playlist because she speaks about confidence and she has songs on there that speak about like she a lot of her songs with the bass line is like you don't allow people to disrespect you.
Yeah, she's
She
right.
sets a lot of boundaries.
Mhm.
And those things they help me. Doechii is another big one.
Yeah.
I listen to things like that. She speaks a lot of positivity about getting things that she's earned because she's a hard worker,
Mhm.
and that is a thing for me. That's a thing for a lot of people, especially Americans. We're hardworking people. You don't deserve breadcrumbs. You deserve the whole entire platter that's on the table and then some. And if you want to go eat again, you should be able to.
Mhm.
So I think like those are all parts of healing, deconstructing things that you've learned.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when healing is possible. But like we were agreeing on, you'd have to kill your ego
Yeah.
first.
You tell me a little bit more about what that looked like for you too, because I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if people who've never had to do that even know what it looks like.
For me personally, my big thing about me killing my ego was admitting the ugly parts of myself. Because we can talk about people pleasing, but like people pleasing is a form of manipulation.
Yep.
And I used to lie to everyone. It's still something that, like, if I don't want to admit something to myself, I'll catch myself in a lie. And I'm like, that's not the truth. It's about myself. It's never about my past. It's never about that. It's about like me in this moment.
Mhm.
And so that's what that looked like for me. Me also admitting that, like, no one is doing anything to me now. I'm doing these things to myself.
Yeah.
And these are self-inflicted wounds now. So like current things that I would go through, like even me being in that relationship, I had to be honest with myself. People told me about who he was, but you chose not to listen because you wanted to feel special. Yes, you were mentally sick, but do understand that that could have been avoided if you maybe had listened to what people were trying to tell you. So it's those types of things, me understanding that I'm not always the victim.
Mhm.
I sometimes am the villain. I am wrong. And I'm wrong. And why you're wrong so it doesn't always matter, but you are wrong. And you need to learn how to figure out how not to do those things again. I had to learn that I was hyper male centered
Mhm.
and that even though, yes, that was taught to me, it was negatively affecting my life. It costed me my job. It costed me relationships. It costed me my apartment. It's how I ended up homeless. Like, even though he didn't take it away from me, the man that I had poured into for almost 2 years abandoned me while he had thousands of dollars at his disposal and did not contribute any of it to my living
Yeah.
situation. So it's like I had to learn that I was allowing people to play in my face. I was allowing people to disrespect me because I want to be chosen, because I want to feel special. I want to be the reason that a person has changed who the like changing the fundamentals of who they are,
Mhm.
because I feel like I deserve to be picked because I was never picked before.
Yeah.
Those are the parts of my ego that I had to kill off. Um, me thinking that other people are me in a situation because I want to again save people.
Mhm.
Jesus can't save people. So like, who do you
Yeah,
think you
that's
are?
what
Like, these
someone
are things I
said.
had.
They were like, "Listen, that's fine, but I'm not Jesus."
No,
And they
but he couldn't save them either.
okay. Or
Yeah.
himself. I think
Or
we
himself.
so I love what you're saying about killing off the ego. It's like really it's not just being self-aware. It's holding the mirror up to say, "This is where I messed
Yeah.
up." I what you
Uh-huh.
said about people pleasing so powerful because it looks like it comes from such a good place, but you're still trying to determine an outcome. It took me to my 40s to realize that. I thought I was just a
Yeah.
philanthropist. I'm giving, giving, giving. I'm showing up, rescuing. I thought it was all out of love because I didn't want anything back. I thought. But then once we
You thought.
started dissecting it, that's why therapists go to therapy. Once we start
Yeah, I
dissecting
can
it, I'm like,
imagine.
oh, I'm doing the most. And for what? Oh, I want to be loved. I want to be picked. I want people to like me.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yes. And then as Black women, like I tell Black women all the time, baby, you could breathe wrong that day and they hate you.
Yeah. You're always on they're always on the
Like,
fence about you anyway.
yeah, so just be you, be authentically
Uh-huh.
you. And and I'm even learning, like, yeah, I do when we're talking about certain topics, I'm always going to come off as angry. But when we're talking about narcissism, when we're talking about the safety of children, when we are talking about misogyny, when we're talking about how men have oppressed women, when we're talking about racism, social justice, yeah, I'm going to sound angry.
Mhm.
I am angry. Those things make me angry.
Yeah.
They have negatively affected so many people's lives.
Mhm.
We can talk about the planet as a whole in its entirety and why it is the way that it is, because it all encompasses and connects all together.
Mhm.
So, yes, when we're talking about those things, yes, I'm going to get upset and I'm going to offend people. People are going to be annoyed with me. They're going to want me to shut up. I'm not going to
Yep.
shut up. We're probably going to get into an argument, and that's okay.
Uh, so
like,
what I've learned too, because not only do I sit with survivors of narcissists, it takes me a while sometimes when parents come in to realize, oh, they're the narcissist. I don't really do too much work with them after. But what I would say is it takes me a second to figure it out,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Once I do, I realize whatever they're complaining about the kid is the gift. It's the healing. So if
uh-huh,
everybody tries to silence you, speaking is the gift. If everybody stops you,
uh,
hey, every time you sing, man, turn the radio on, be quiet. The gift is singing. So it's kind of like narcissistic family dynamics, they mute the gift. So whatever you
mm,
thought like you have the most shame about that you have to do is usually the work, even if you don't want to. Cause like with your
yeah.
content, it sounded like you were like, this is what I am gonna do, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna get him. It was just like, I'm gonna
No,
start
it
talking
was,
about what happened to me.
yeah, and they've just found it offensive because it. And the thing is like, in a way, I was still protecting them. I wasn't saying names.
Mhm.
I wasn't like doing anything. I will say when I gained my first huge following on TikTok, it was my mom was in some of the pictures, but like at that point I really didn't care,
Yeah.
and it's still up there. I still don't care to this day. My mom has no issue being in somewhat of a public eye because she's started a podcast before, so it doesn't matter, and she likes attention. So I was like, I'll give you that. My mom's is always different from like my family's, but now from current events, if people find out who they are, they find out who they are. But it wasn't because of me. It's because of them commenting. And you're commenting on a public platform.
And
So
people
I'm
will
going to
find
respond
out.
to you publicly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's not on me. That's on you. That's a decision that you made. Because like if I'm such a liar, if I'm such a horrible person, if I'm abusing narratives for followers,
Mhm.
then why are you following me?
Yeah, and why are you commenting to the point that I'm responding? That's why when I cut contact, and I've done it over time. So like I'm in my 40s. I'm literally about to be 42. So like this is like maybe some life advice is like when you go no contact and then you give them a little bit more and then you come back and you give them more. It's like returning to an abusive relationship, but the person's got a chip on their shoulder. So they always do more and more damage and more damage. You escape the damage
Mm,
that they gave you initially. When you return and return
okay.
and return, there's so much more to heal from. Like, there's stuff I endured
Okay.
I never would have had to heal from because I wouldn't have been back. But when you start off and, no contact isn't a thing, you get a lot of shame. And so you're like, not
Yeah.
only that, but you really need your family too. You need an aunt, you need
Yes.
a mom. It just doesn't have to be yours. That's what we know now.
No.
But back
No.
then, we didn't know that. So,
I didn't know that at all, and I just was like, "Well, I'm just gonna be alone, like, it is what it is," and I started feeling like that when I was in my relationship. I was like, "I think I'm just stuck with him," because, like, I've now, like, because I went a long time, like, I wouldn't speak to my friends as much. I prioritized him. I made sure that he was taken care of, he was fed, he was bathed, he was clothed, he was and I wasn't buying, like, clothes or anything, but I just was making sure that he was taken care of, like,
yeah,
he was my child, which also made me feel like I was taking care of my brother again, and I missed my brother at the time.
yeah,
So it's like you're saying, like, just because you went no contact, you will find these patterns repeating themselves again.
hmm,
And I just like with back to my family, like they've made it known for who they are. So some of them have been figured out. I'll let that be what it is. Like I didn't out you, you outed yourself, like you
hmm,
said, because why are you commenting on things and having me respond? Like I that video that was commented on most recently, I was talking about going on a hiatus because I need to focus on therapy. I don't know where on that you felt the need to talk about how I'm abusing narratives for followers. And I'm a person like at this point in who I am right now, and I'm about to be 30, I don't shut up. So I was like, well, guys, I was on a 2 day, I was on a hiatus, but give me a second. I got to address this and
yeah,
then I'm going back on my hiatus.
hmm,
So, and those things for me are now, I used to get offended. I used to cry a lot when they would do those types of
hmm,
things. I used to get really sad. I don't get sad anymore. I just get angry. And then I kind of simmer down and it just reminds me that what my best friend has always told me is so true. Like they're just jealous of me.
yeah,
And even the aunt who just commented the most, or my most recent video on my page, she's such a beautiful author and a writer. And I've always supported her in everything that she does. And I've always wished that she could reach this level of fame. Like, honestly, maybe like J.K. Rowling or
mhm.
someone of that nature,
Wow.
whomever. But she doesn't write that type of literature. She's more of like a funny authoress. She's great, great writing voice. But instead, like you've chosen to take the extra time on your hands to keep consistently commenting negative
Yeah.
things on my videos on the niece that has always supported you. Me and her look alike. She could be my twin. Okay, we even kind of handle things and think the same about situations.
Hmm.
We used to joke that she needed to swap daughters because like we were the same.
The
And this
irony.
is how
I hear this all the
you
time. This is so it's like every story
oh,
sounds just like this when it comes to an aunt. It's always the favorite aunt. It's
yeah,
always that their child, they would swap and have raised you and would have had a better relationship every time.
yeah. And I but I think I knew that it didn't matter if we wouldn't have had a better relationship when I had went to visit her, and one day she got upset. It was erratic like it normally is in my family.
Mhm,
Um, and I heard the way that she spoke to her daughter, which is my cousin, and I was like, "Hmm." I was like, "Oh, so this is just a thing for us. Like
mhm,
this is just how daughters and mothers how our mothers talk to us." And then I know a lot of people don't believe in astrology, but that's when I realized that my I think it's my Lilith moon is in Cancer,
mhm,
and unfortunately, my lineage, this has always been an issue. Um, and yes, where I do feel like a generational curse breaker,
mhm.
I don't like the burden that comes with it, and I don't like the narrative that always comes with that
Yes.
because all of my aunts could have been generational curse breakers, but they didn't choose to pick up the tools that were laid out in front of them.
Yeah.
And I understand that different eras in time and different generations, different things were happening. But the aunt specifically that I'm talking about, she has the brain to have done this, and she chose not to.
Mm,
And you're now upset with me because I'm choosing to do it. And not only am I choosing to do it, it disrupts the family.
mhm.
And so I can't. I think the thing that I'm learning now, I cannot be concerned about how anybody is perceiving me. I cannot be concerned about whose feelings that I'm hurting because there are bigger issues at hand, and those feelings and perceptions are not one of them.
Yeah. You're choosing yourself,
Mhm.
and that is how you do it. When you stop caring
Yeah,
about what people think. when you put yourself
Mhm.
first, when you like
Mhm.
you literally check in. One of the other people on the podcast said every morning she checks in before she even puts her feet down. It's like, what do you want to do today? How do you feel? What do you need?
I like that.
Yeah, and she said in doing that, she always puts herself first. Anybody who gets anything from her in life, it's just her overflow. She's not giving up
Mm.
anything for anyone. And I loved that the way that she painted it, because it's like it makes it so clear, like because people always tell you what you should do, but they don't really tell you
Yes.
how to do it.
No, no, people tell you you need to love yourself. What does that look like for you? That's different for everyone.
Yeah.
It was definitely different for me. It's not just me being Mary Jane sticking post-it notes all over my house with positive affirmations.
No.
That wasn't helping.
Mm-mm.
What helped was me standing firm on my boundaries with myself. Like, screw what I was telling like other people to not do to me. I was also doing things to me
Mhm.
that were hurting me. And I was like, well, hey, like, I could hear my inner child screaming, like, you're doing it again. You are hurting us again. Can you stop, please?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. Okay, all right. Like, okay, I hear you. Okay.
Mhm.
I can't always get my needs and desires met because it is at the detriment of myself. So that was like a thing, like learning to not be impulsive,
Yeah.
learning to not be erratic. And I also want to be clear when I do want to say this, because I feel like maybe I haven't said this yet. Me and my mom are the same. We're very similar. As much as I don't want to be like my mother, I am her child.
Mhm.
She raised me. So I have some of her best qualities. I also have her worst qualities. And that would come with me being impulsive, me thinking irrationally, me having low self esteem, me being male centered, which I'm deconstructing. All of those things I've had to deconstruct. But those were all taught to me by my mom. Me having even just down to horrible money management was a part of my ego death.
Mhm.
I'm like, you claim that you want things, but you keep spending money on food.
Mhm.
So you say you want something, but your actions are not matching. You are your mom. So like I think that's a part of the ego death that maybe I should have said. You have to understand at some point you are the people that raised you, even if you hate them.
Yeah, and but I've learned, like, because I look like my mom, I've learned that I can be
Me
the
too.
best parts of her. So, but what I wasn't
Yes.
gonna do was I was not going to, like, overeat anymore, because for me,
Uh-huh.
when I overate, it was her controlling me because I'm trying to cope with whatever she had going on at the time or what she was telling me or doing to me. So I literally just made a choice to not. And that was and I know it sounds like something really small to be like overeating, but like the body, one, needs
Not for
dopamine.
this
It
girl.
needs it feels like when you talk to people about it, sometimes they don't get the extent of it. But like I will not, I am never a person to be like, Jess, that was so stupid. Never. Because
No.
that's what I was called. So now I will never talk to
Mhm.
myself like that. Everything in me is about healing the inner child. I will pump her up. I will award, that whole thing that our like culture is taught, like you don't reward things that are supposed to happen. I'm the opposite. Girl, you got out of bed on time. That's what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
oh,
You did that.
absolutely. The small
Yes,
wins.
everything's a win. Everything.
Yes.
Even the
Yeah.
failures, falling, things going wrong, it's all an opportunity.
You admitting it a failure is a win within itself.
Okay? I love that.
Like it's like I could just not learn from anything I'm doing.
Yes. I love that.
So I agree, and I love everything that you said, because that everything I resonate with, and I when I said I that is my eating disorder. I have bulimia is what I've been recently diagnosed with. I thought it was binge eating,
Mhm,
and my family, we have a history of binge eating.
mhm,
Um, I think I knew that was a problem when I'd be looking through photo albums.
mhm.
And most people, they just got pictures of like the place they visited, things to do with
Yeah.
their family. My family's taking pictures of big platters of food.
Mm,
And people's like, well, that's normal. No, no, no. No, no, no. I'm talking pages upon pages, just
mhm,
went to the photo shops because it was back in like the 2000s to go get them developed and put them in a photo album.
mhm,
So like I'm like, yeah, no, my family, we have a big issue with food.
mhm.
So I that's not small. It's a hard thing to do because that's a part of American culture.
Yeah.
Drinking and excess eating is a part of American culture.
Mhm.
That is what we do. And now drinking is obviously a part of all cultures, but it's really heavily pushed towards us here in America.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
so
because
is
'cause we're
eating.
drinking to get messed up, whereas most countries are drinking to complement whatever foods they're eating and pairing,
Yeah.
right?
we're getting drunk and and then every single situation that we do in America revolves around food.
Yep.
Everything revolves around food.
Mhm.
There's repeat fast food places all the time. It's our culture. It's ingrained in us. So no, overcoming binge eating is no small feat.
No. No.
And it's
Right.
not for the faint of heart. I know because I have to take medicine to keep my food noise down.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
And
So
whatever you gotta
yeah.
do is honorable. I know our culture, being Black, a lot of times it's like, you should be able to do everything on your own, but what I've learned is, like,
No.
anything that I don't have to do on my own, I'm gonna do. So,
Yeah, girls take their meds.
yeah, it's like, just take it,
I
whatever.
tell people take the medicine.
Yeah, because once the food noise comes down, it's just like psych meds. Like, people are like, "I'm not taking psych meds." They don't wanna admit something's wrong, but a lot of times in therapy, I'm able to help people quicker if they take the med, because
Sure.
then I don't have to cope with what's happening in the moment and
Yeah.
the anxiety. Instead, we can really
Yeah.
talk about, like, get to the root of it, because some of the symptoms are managed. So it's kinda like whatever
Yes.
you do is help for yourself. It doesn't matter what it
Yes.
looks like as long as it's not harmful. That's when we are drawing the line, but
I I agree with that. I agree with that. It's just it's been a long journey and it's taken me a long time to get here. I'm grateful that I'm here. I do have rough days. Okay, trauma therapy is not for the
no.
weak. But I'm grateful for everyone that's been on this journey with me. I'm grateful to be here talking to you today.
Mhm.
So it's had its more. I will say this part of my life has had more positives than negatives.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And I also wanted to know, what would you say to the 16-year-old version of yourself if you could?
Mm. Understand that you are the program and never allow anybody to be bigger than that.
Mhm.
You are capable of surviving without these people. Because I really, really used to tell myself that I could not live my life without my mom.
Mhm.
Even when I would say I would never talk to her again, there was always a part of my brain that was like, but I mean, she's your mom.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you're not going to talk to your mom? Who else is going to laugh with you? Who else is going to understand the things that you do? Who's going to watch TV shows with you? Who's going to basically kind of just be my like frenemy, I guess, in a way? Because that's really all that I can ever describe my mom as. Now I see it was just an enemy, but at the time, a frenemy. And I think another thing I would tell her, your body is should never be up for sale. And I don't mean monetary wise.
Mhm.
Your body belongs to you. You should not allow people to have access to it.
Mhm.
Um, I think another thing the big thing I would tell her is that like she doesn't love you and you have to let her go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was like a really hard thing for me to accept because I I really, really, really cared and loved my mother very, very deeply.
Mhm.
Even as she would be abusing me, I would just tell myself like she's just a hurt person. Like it's because she never got therapy. Like she just sometimes maybe she doesn't understand what she's doing, or like maybe if you guys did this and maybe if you did that, she would and I just would tell myself like none of that matters.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter what you do. She still hates you. She still doesn't love you. And I think another big thing that I'll probably end it with this is everything she's doing is intentional. My mother is a very methodical woman.
Mhm.
I don't really believe that all the time my mom was just acting erratically. I do feel like sometimes she would think about what she was doing and she would keep doing it to make it worse.
Yeah. That's why I think for me, it came to the point where, and remember, I'm older than you, but in my
Mhm.
30s, I kept the other family members around. Now, I
Yes.
block them, and the reason why is because I understand that in narcissistic family dynamics, they need a supply, and anything they can do to
They
just
do.
show up will ruin your day, and I don't want them to
Yes.
have that much control over my day. I actually
No.
still love them too. I just know that they're not well, and I don't do on people who aren't well.
No, and you should not. I think my love for my mother dissipated when I was in therapy a few years back and I learned that she knew that I was being sexually assaulted by her now late ex-husband. And I think that's like when my love for my mom dissipated.
Yep.
Um, I think the person, if someone asked me who I had the most love for in my family, it'd be my grandmother. My grandmother, even with all of the horrible things that she's done and said to me, my grandmother is the strongest, one of the strongest women I've ever encountered.
Mhm.
My grandmother is ambitious. She is smart. She's quick. She, even though she's a narcissist, I call her a top tier one. Okay.
Mhm.
My grandmother pulled herself up out of the poverty of DC in the middle of segregation, moved herself to the South. Yes, she, with a baby on her hip. And yes, she had my grandfather, but no offense, he wasn't much help. My grandmother did these things.
Mm.
She got herself a house, a 6 bedroom house and finished a basement and put a theater in it and accomplished all these things. Hosted parties, was a big socialite here in like her community in
Mhm.
Georgia. And my grandmother set herself up where she worked for the government for 25 years and she sits pretty now and doesn't have to do anything.
Mhm.
Those types of things, and because of the traumas that my grandmother faced, um, she still did that in like the face of adversity. And she did it, and at the time she did it with grace.
Yeah.
My grandmother was very lively. She was sociable. She was, even though she was insane,
Mm.
she did it, you
Yeah.
know? And maybe that, and even though that's a quote that goes around, I will accomplish everything because I'm insane. That's my grandmother.
Mhm.
That's her. And I try to take a lot of that with me on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Um, I have the most love for her, and may sound crazy, respect for her, even though she just doesn't respect me.
Yeah.
Um, she will always, I will always hold that I feel like that place in my heart for her. Um, even from a distance, I will more than likely, because to me, when we're speaking about my family, they are all dead to me.
Mhm.
I really, I'm a person that when I'm angry, I don't say things out of
Yeah.
anger. I am saying them because that's truly how I feel, and I don't ever regret what I say when I'm angry. I really do mean it.
Yeah.
I do think rationally while I'm
That's how
angry.
truth tellers are. They're not just saying something to turn the knife. They mean it, even if it's hard.
I mean it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I told her, I said, you are dead to me. Like we won't be speaking past this point. And I have never spoken to my grandmother since then, and I never will. And I meant that for the rest of my family too. It's like when I told them our very last family vacation, it was horrible. My grandmother was the cause of that, to be honest. And I told them, I said, I'll never go on another family vacation with y'all ever again. And then fast forward like 3 years later, that's when that big thing happened. And they asked me to go on a family vacation. I said no. I said, you're dead to me. And I meant it. I really don't say things out of anger. I really
Yeah.
don't. I'm thinking very rationally when I'm angry.
Yeah. So you meant it. And
Mhm.
is there anything
Yeah.
else that you would tell somebody who's have been raised by a narcissistic mother, or like just some parting advice that you were like, this is what you got to do besides just the ego stuff that we talked about for
Mhm.
you? Is there anything that you would give them?
Um, Besides the no contact, because that's always big number one on
Mhm.
my list. Um, I'm I don't, it sounds so cliche. I would really encourage you to write out your childhood.
Mhm.
I'm a writer, so that's probably why my brain goes there, but I would really encourage you to do a lot of inner child work and understand how hurt they are so you can understand why you are the way you are today.
Mhm. That's real.
That's my biggest piece of advice.
That's good. Thank you, Yazzie, so much for joining me tonight. It looks like this is 100% closure through release, and I'm so
Yeah.
thankful that you chose you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed being here and I enjoyed the conversation that we had. It was very
Thank
nice.
you.